Howdy friends, another Q&A here. Just getting started with this one today from Kirby. Got this one via email. And the question is, hi Ryan, is there anything similar to the CAGED system for guitar which can be used for learning chords up and down the neck on the banjo? So that's a good question. If you don't know what the CAGED system is for guitar, you might want to research that on your own on the internet. But let's say you're here watching this video because you are curious if there's a way that the CAGED system can be translated to the banjo, or at least if we can find some parallels or some analogs there. And the answer is yes. So let me show you how you can take those CAGED system ideas and apply them to the banjo as well. Let's just take a look here at this chart. Okay, so we're going to concentrate at first on the top row, just those first three chords. Those are our primary shapes inside the CAGED system, the C, A, and E shapes, and then we'll look at the other two, the G and the D, right after that. So if you look at the top left hand chord there, you're looking at a C chord shape. Your standard open C chord. In the CAGED system, if we were to move that chord around as a movable chord, which means we would have to compensate. Let's look, keep following that red row there, and look, you still have that C chord shape, but now we're looking at this barred version on the second fret. So that's a D chord. And if you look at the bottom red chord shape there in that column, up one more fret, that's an E flat chord, right? Or D sharp, whatever you want to call it. That's D there, E flat there. But what we're concerned with here in this CAGED system is that we refer to this shape as a C shape. And that is because underneath the bar, these fingers are making the shape that we know as an open C chord, right? So that is now referred to as our C shape. You may know this just as a D chord, this big movable D chord shape, which is great. That's fine, but we're referring to this now as a C shape, and that's where that naming convention comes into play, is based on our open or first position chord shape. So if you look at the blue column there, we have an A shape because we know this is an A chord, correct? And you should know if you move that up and down the neck, you're going to get some other chords. The shape doesn't change though. The shape is always going to be called an A shape when we use this system. So if we look down that blue column there, we see if we play this on the 5th fret, that's a C chord now, but it's just an A shape. If we went back and played it on the 1st fret, still an A shape, but on the 1st fret that happens to manifest as a B flat chord or an A sharp chord, either one. Likewise, look at our 3rd column, E shape. Have a regular open E chord shape, but if we were to bar that and move it around, it starts to look like this. This should look familiar to you. Let's look down this yellow column. If we move that up to here, this is like a barred E chord shape. It's like an E, open E underneath a bar, which means we've just raised it up, E, F, G. So you're probably already familiar with playing this as a G chord shape, or definitely playing this one here as an F shape, or F chord rather. But therein is the distinction. You want to refer to this shape as an E chord shape. Even if right here, if I play it here, it's an F chord. If I play it here, it's a G chord. Play it here, it's an A chord. But it's an E chord shape from now on. That's what we'll call this, because it's an E looking shape underneath a bar. Okay, I think I've driven that point home well enough. So those 3 shapes are your primary shapes. And you may already have a lot of experience using those as movable shapes up and down the neck, and most folks will concentrate on those 3 primary movable shapes, and that'll get you a lot of mileage. But to make this CAGED system parallel here on our banjo, we've got to have our 5 shapes, and we're going to have to fill in that connective tissue. So let's take a look at the top column there on the far right in the green. We see we have the G shape. Now you probably already know a G chord is maybe just an open, or maybe as our previously mentioned one, our E chord shape on the 3rd fret. There are myriad ways to play a G chord. One way to play a G chord, technically, you can just fret the 3rd fret here and then strum the other 3 strings open. That's kind of a G chord there still. So whether or not you knew that you could call this a G chord here, this is now our G chord shape. This is our G shape. It'll be the 2nd string, 3 frets up, everything else open, right? So like the other shapes, if I want to move this up and down the neck, let's say I move this up 2 frets, it will look like that. So I still just have the 3rd fret on the 2nd string fretted relative to the bar, right? So that would be our A chord G shape. This here would be a C chord G shape. This would be a C chord A shape, C chord G shape. I think that makes sense to you, so let's go ahead and look at the far right of the 2nd column here, and that is our D shape. This shape here is an alternate way to play a D chord. Alright, and we're going to just use this as our D shape. So again, if we want to bar that and make it movable, anytime you have a bar, relative to that bar you have these 2 notes fretted. So relative to the bar you have the 3rd string 2nd fret and the 2nd string 3rd fret. So now this, if I played this here, this would be a D shape, but played up here it would be an E chord D shape, F chord D shape, G chord D shape, etc., etc. And hopefully that makes sense to you. I think it should at this point if you made it this far in this video. So now let's look at connecting all those up and down the neck just the way you would do if you're using the CAGED system on guitar. Let's take a look again at some more diagrams. So again, we'll look at that C chord up there, open C. That is our C shape, obviously. Notice that we can go from our C shape to our A shape, and that there are 2 frets in between those 2 shapes. As part of the CAGED system, part of its value and use is just recognizing these pattern relationships. So what you need to understand and commit to memory is the fact that anytime you play a chord in the C shape, you can find that exact same chord if you traverse a 2 fret space and play the A shape. And the way you remember the order is the word CAGED, C-A-G-E-D. So if we played a C chord here, I know that if I leave these 2 frets out of it and play an A shape, it's going to be another C chord. Because now what we want, we played a C and an A, so now we want our G shape. Here, we can keep that bar where we are. This is one of our connective shapes, right? Not one of our primary. So our G is one of our connectors. So we see I can play the G shape right here. So if this is the A shape, what I know is, and need to commit to memory, is that my G shape is just connected to my A shape. So where the bar is for the A shape is the same place the bar is for the G shape. The difference is I'm adding this note here. So here's another voicing for a C chord. Now I can learn that my relationship between my G shape and my E shape is that this is the connective note there. So that's where the bar would move. And now I'm doing my E shape. As you see, you can see that in yellow there on the bottom diagram and the top diagram. So that is yet another C chord. And now I've committed memory that if I'm ever playing a G shape, a chord in the G shape, I know that this bar area up here is where my A shape is, and or I know that where the pinky is the top of my E shape. Same chord, C chord. If I want to find another C chord shape connected to this, I can take where this E shape ends on the 10th fret in this case, put my bar there and play my D shape. So these are all C chords. I'm just going through the C, A, G, E, and D shapes. and taking care to notice how they connect. So now that is a C chord in the D shape. And you can see on the diagram that this C shape shares, or the D shape shares these two notes here with the C shape. So now I go up here, play the C shape. As you see, like everything in music, we might conceptualize it in a straight line, but it's definitely a circle. We get C, A, G, E, D. We learn how all those connect, and then we see that our D connects right back into our C. And then as long as we have frets on our instrument, room to express this, we can keep moving forward. I know that from a C shape at any given time, I can skip 2 frets and play an A shape and get the same chord, so that's going to be a C chord. If I had more frets, I could play my G shape to get yet another C chord, so on, so on. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you're watching this vid, you probably already know a bit about the CAGED system. You just want to see how it might lay out on the banjo, and that is how you would do it. Instead of a C chord, let's say we're playing, let's say we're going to do this for G chords. And I'm going to start right here on this G chord that you probably know, this movable G chord on the 3rd to 5th frets. Look at that. That is, in our new CAGED system, that is an E shape. So if this is an E shape, the next shape would be a D shape. So that's going to be another G chord. And if that's a D shape, the next one would be a C shape. So that's going to be another G chord. If that's a C shape, the next one's an A shape right here. So that'll be another G chord. If that's an A shape, I know the next one is going to be a G shape. So that would be yet another G chord. If that's a G, the next one's an E. So that would be yet another G chord. And hopefully that's making sense for you. Start looking at these diagrams and these relationships here and see if they can help you out. There are almost endless ways to use this system. We didn't get anywhere close to talking about real practical application of this system for performing, improvising, or just general conceptualization and study. It goes a long, long way. We're getting into a bunch of that stuff here in the future in the Better Banjo way and the playbetterbanjo.com lessons and courses. So hopefully I'll see you there. At the very least, I'll see you in a few more days here with another video, and enjoy that, and see you soon. Go make some noise.